Everyone, my name is Rik Hull. I'm Council 2 Chairman Rob Powson of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. I want to thank everyone for still being awake after lunch at this point in the afternoon and for our host today. Try to keep it relatively quick, get us back on schedule. Start with something you haven't heard today, right? The development of shale gas is crucial for our economy, both locally and regionally. A little bit of sarcasm. As I said earlier, energy equals jobs. I'll take it a step further. Cheap energy equals jobs. And it's a pretty simple proposition. You just heard it from Williams. If you don't get your product to market, there's not much value. I don't care if you're a farmer, a manufacturer, or a gas producer. You heard Katie Claber mention earlier about Governor Corbett's trade mission. And I can tell you, my boss is on a trade mission. I can tell you the very first question out of the Chilean president's mouth when they met was, when are you going to start sending me your natural gas so I can power my economy? Of course, that means building pipelines. You've got to build pipelines too, and we have to build export facilities. So, without that, then we're not going to get the full benefit out of it that we could. In order to develop pipelines, we need what I'll call a compact with citizens. It's strict environmental oversight, which the DEP provides, strict environmental safety regulation, which is the PUC's area. Without these two things, then the public will lose faith in the industry, and we won't be able to develop it. I'll say this: the companies, the pipeline companies, Williams and the others, they're not in the business. They don't grow to the size that they are without operating safely. It's like a pizza shop. It's like anything else. If you open up a shop and you start selling food that doesn't taste very good, or you get a lot of food poisoning and things like that, you're not going to be in business. Same goes for the pipeline companies. But we operate under the old Reagan quote, trust but verify. So we know these guys are in business to operate safely. However, our job is to make sure and double check to make sure that they actually are. Some facts and figures for you. 46,000 miles of what are traditionally known as the utilities pipelines. This is all in Pennsylvania. A little bit over 10,000 miles of gathering lines, a little bit under 10,000 miles of transmission lines, and about 2,700 miles of hazardous pipelines. So all added up, it's 68,000 miles of pipelines in Pennsylvania, and those numbers are actually probably a little bit dated. So put that in perspective, Pennsylvania is the fourth in the country in terms of interstate miles. You could travel Pennsylvania's interstates 39 times with pipeline miles. You could go from Lincoln Financial Field to Heinz Field in Pittsburgh 200 or 325 times. You could shoot down at 81, jump on 80, go to San Francisco 24 times, and you could go around the earth a little bit under 3 times with the amount of pipeline that's currently in Pennsylvania, and that's growing every day. So we had 2 pieces of major legislation passed end of 2011 and of 2012, Act 127, pipeline safety. What it did is it bridged the gap between state authority and federal authority so that we could enforce federal regulations. Act 13, most people think of as the impact fee, actually also made the midstream operators subject to PA1 call, which I'll get into a little bit later. So it closed that gap. So Act 127, basically we partner with the federal authorities, Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, known as PHMSA. They fall under the Federal Department of Transportation. We partner with them to enforce their rules and regulations in Pennsylvania as well as our own. And thanks to Act 127, our oversight now mirrors that federal oversight. So before we didn't have jurisdiction over gathering in intrastate transmission systems, we do now have that. And so it's all intrastate transmission. In other words, it's transmission line that starts and ends in Pennsylvania, and classes 2, 3, and 4 gathering. Pipelines classified 1 of 4 classifications. Class 1 is 10 structures or fewer within so many feet of a mile of pipeline, so it's a more rural area. There's no safety oversight currently over the more rural pipeline. There is a push to do that both at a state and national level, though. Most important thing on this slide is that you'll see that our safety oversight, the work we do is 100% industry funded. No taxpayer dollars, no ratepayer dollars. So I think that's important to mention. So before 127, we already had oversight over what we traditionally think of as utilities, regulated gas utilities. We did 45 types of inspections. We're now doing very similar inspections for the pipeline operators. So in the past year, what we've been doing, we hired 4 gas safety inspectors. I'm sure private industry, like 4 people, not a big deal, but working for the state, you would be surprised how long it takes to hire 4 people. We also conducted inspections for every single jurisdictional entity within the past year, and we're now starting to do operation and maintenance inspections for every single jurisdictional entity. We also developed a registry. Before Act 127, there was no comprehensive list of who was operating pipelines in Pennsylvania. Act 127 cured that, and so there is now that registry. 92 companies registered. 51 of those companies have jurisdictional pipelines, so it's either intrastate transmission or class 2, 3, and 4 gathering lines. It's about $495 a mile that they're paying for the safety oversight. One interesting thing for our Pennsylvania industry is they also have to report the amount of domestically produced pipeline that they're using. That was something that the steel industry wanted to be dropped in so we could keep track of how much Pennsylvania Steel, how much U.S. Steel, I should say United States Steel, not U.S. Steel, the company, is being used. 2013 numbers were filed March 31st. There was too much data to get compiled for today's presentation, but it will be out soon, and new assessments for the companies are going out in August. So what does an inspection entail? You can read the list, but I'll say most inspections look more like an audit. We're not out there walking the pipelines every day. It's more of an audit. It's mostly spent in the office, reviewing records, books, and any sort of documents relevant to how they're operating the pipelines. Moving on to Act 13. Act 13 made pipeline operators, or I should say gathering systems, subject to PA1 call. In case you're not familiar with what PA1 call is, it's the law you have to call 3 days before doing any sort of excavation work. You have to call 811, make sure you're not going to strike any underground facilities, utility facilities. I will say third-party damage is the most, it's the greatest safety challenge for pipelines. It's not themselves operating unsafely. It's excavators going out, contractors, people sinking mailboxes, things like that actually cause the greatest number of damage. And just a little plug for us, we're actually exploring moving one call. It's currently enforced by the Department of Labor and Industry. We're exploring and bringing it under the Public Utility Commission's jurisdiction. So here, if we find a safety violation, first step is written report. Second step is they provide an answer. We try to handle it informally first before proceeding to litigation. Saves everyone a lot of time and expense. And a lot of times the companies will do everything that we would require them in litigation anyway. We can fine them up to $200,000 for an incident, up to $2 million for a series of violations. So it's real money that we're talking about. On the pipeline study, I know it's always an important topic, especially in this area of the state. Transmission lines, the FERC has the siting jurisdiction for the interstate, intrastate. There's no jurisdiction over siting. It is subject to state environmental permitting, though. You can see a definition of what a transmission line, definition of the gathering lines is to put it in perspective, though. If Scranton wasn't producing well, the Central Scranton Expressway would be the gathering line. Interstate 81 would be the transmission line. Again, no entity has jurisdiction over siting. There was an interesting case, Laser Marcellus, who actually, I believe Williams bought a little over a year ago. They had actually petitioned the Public Utility Commission for utility status. Got a lot of interest in the industry because that would have meant that they would have the power of eminent domain. They could have come in and with their public utility status, just as electric or gas utility can now, and condemn property. That they end up withdrawing the application actually, though. So again, currently no siting jurisdiction. No, and also importantly, they don't have the power. No pipeline has the power of eminent domain either, which means they can only put it where the landowners allow them to put it. or in rights-of-way, public rights-of-way. So natural gas distribution, what are commonly thought of as utilities, complete oversight by the Public Utility Commission. I think you heard George Stark mention earlier, Susquehanna County. There's actually a brand new gas utility, Leatherstock and Gas Company, in northern Susquehanna County. It's actually the first gas utility that entered the state in probably over 100 years. The people that they serve in northern Susquehanna County actually have some of the lowest rates in the state, some of the lowest rates in the country for gas service. And the people, a lot of the industry and the homes up there were heated through either propane or heating oil, so they'll be saving literally thousands of dollars a year by signing up for gas service. You heard Senator Dudichak earlier talk about Senate Bill 738, 739. They're trying to get gas utilities to expand their system so more customers can take service. Western PA is not as much of an issue. They have about 90% penetration just because of the way the gas industry is built out there. But you heard from UGI earlier, they only have 50% penetration along its mains. So its existing mains, only 1 out of every 2 people actually take gas service from them. So I encourage you to, for your own economic benefit, encourage you to explore whether or not you live along a main and can actually take service. And lastly, do another plug for 811. Call you before you dig. And if you want to learn more, I'll refer you to Pat Henderson, who's the governor's energy executive, wrote a really good report. It's actually written in plain English, which is rare for this industry. And you can find it on the Department of Environmental Protection's Act 13 website. It goes through a comprehensive, it's probably about 20, 25 pages, comprehensive study of all things pipeline in Pennsylvania. So thanks for listening.